Hey, welcome back. My name is Dino. This video is a look into the Wayback Machine at a video called What is Internet Anyways? You might know some of these characters in the middle. Brian Gumble on the left, America's former sweetheart. I'm not sure if she still is. Katie Couric on the right. At least from this resolution, sort of like a Juliette Lewis look-alike, but it's definitely not hers. But someone looks like her. I'll put this in the the metadata below the video, the YouTube link. After watching this video, it's pretty short, it's a couple minutes long. What are your thoughts on what is internet anyway? Let's start off with a bit of a timeline. This is a quick sort of question. What year, maybe even before you start looking at the video, some people in the audience who are a little bit older might be able to figure this out just from Brian Gumble and Katie Couric and how they look. What year was this made? If you haven't looked yet, or you don't know, it was 1994. Like it's approximately like 30 years, like decades ago. So this idea, they're investigating what the phenomenon of the internet is, and it's kind of like they're confronted with it kind of live on air, and they're kind of shocked reactions to some things. I'm going to talk about some issues that came from this video that are raised by the original segment from the Today Show. One is language. Gumble is talking, their conversation about the internet is so old, and it was so new at the time. The @ symbol, Brian Gumble, and I'm not criticizing him. I think it was probably something that other people thought of at the time. Was the @ side, did it mean at or about? So like at that time, it sort of speaks to the idea that when technology comes out, just the language to describe basic terms takes a little bit of a while to unfold. So again, even at this point, there was a bit of confusion. I think it was probably always at. It was always called at, but just because of the way that symbol looks, I think some people were confused at the time. Another is about communication. This is a quote from the video. This is from one of the producers talking from behind the camera, and they yell out, "It's that massive computer network, the one that's becoming really big now." So this is one of the earliest forms of communication popularly about the internet, and they're still trying to figure it out. You can even tell by this very provisional language where they're not even sure exactly what it is. You can tell when you watch the video. It's kind of cute. The next is the idea of use. Gumble asks to his co-hosts and the off-stage producers, what do you write to? What do you write to it? Like email? So the use of it, even at the time, is not particularly sure. And Gumble sort of rightfully sees one of the early applications of internet is for email. And it's about this idea that use is ever emerging, and at the very beginning, a lot of people don't know what to do. Like today, like with AI, people are like, "Oh, AI, it's groundbreaking. It's changing the world." And then when people have it, they're like, "Well, what do I do with this AI?" Misinformation rears its ugly head. So one of the producers off screen yells out, "It's a computer billboard, but it's nationwide," talking about the internet. And that's not technically all incorrect, but when it's saying that the internet's a computer billboard, which I mean, maybe you could sort of make an argument to that that's at least part of it, which is probably true. The way he made it sound, it was like the totality of it is it's a computer billboard. And so this gentleman, and I'm not second guessing his motives, as he's fumbling around towards the truth, he's using the analogy of a billboard, and they had those types of billboards and like chats going on were quite big at the time, but characterizing it only as a billboard is obviously not correct. And I would say it's misinformation because it's more unintended than disinformation, where it's intentional. Origins of the internet. Again, one of the producers yells out, "It's several universities all joined together." So that was the original network. And in fact, it did start at universities for the most part for that kind of research. So I'm kind of sort of, in this day and age, there's not as much positive notes about universities. So I like to sort of talk about them doing blue sky research and having things emerge like the internet. Emergency needs. The co-host on the far right, again, I'm not sure who this is. I do know Kirk on the left and Gumbel in the middle. She says that the internet became really useful during the earthquake because all the phone lines are down. And what you find is emergency needs, unexpected uses often drive new technologies because people don't know what to do with them. It's like, oh, look, I don't have a phone line. Can't get hold of anyone. Oh, I wonder, let's try this whole internet thing. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it's useful. Finally, a couple of things before we finish up. Takeaways. One is that conventions develop rapidly, like the idea of this being called an at symbol, not about. And it makes me think maybe of a counterfactual. If for some reason about sort of grew exponentially and the people that kind of knew the original language didn't say anything, I wonder if it could have been like just after, if thousands of people start calling it about, if there might be a point where people are like, it's actually not about, but let's just keep it at that because too many people know it'll be too confusing. But it's interesting how these conventions develop rapidly, and they're more emerging than you'd think. The internet, it's a connection and communication based. It's basically a network, so that's really like a focus of it. Use and emergency needs drives growth. For example, let's use it for emails, so use it to contact people during emergencies. Misinformation can start rapidly, as per that producer quote about billboards that are in a national network. Like there were billboards, but it was more than that. And then finally, for those of you who are a bit suspicious of universities, they are your friends. Not always, but they often, the tax dollars pay teachers like me. They pay for the wonderful staff who make sure the place runs properly. But they also do things like come up with things like the internet. Isn't that great? Did it exclusively, was it just purely a university thing? No, but a lot of the driving force for it initially was. Finally, some questions from all this. Given that this was, the Today Show is still a giant for morning television shows, how do we roll out innovations? Should we be having it so that people like this, like well-intentioned, and they're journalists, should morning TV shows be used as a vehicle? Like, was this even planned? It seemed like the way that the segment was done, it seemed more improvisational. When we have innovations, how do we communicate them? Is TV the best way? Should it be done through print where it's a bit more fixed? How do we fix misinformation once it gets there? And that's been a huge problem for the last decade. When you're doing innovations, I wonder if we should start with needs and work backwards. So if you need a medium to communicate between computers and people, to mail people electronically, and to deal with emergencies, hey, let's do this thing called an internet. Like, let's think of this idea of network computers and see where that can serve our needs. And then finally, I have an opinion on this, and hopefully you do too. Is the internet still emerging? I would say that it definitely is still emerging, but people might think it's more fixed than it is, but it will always be emerging. That was What is Internet Anyways? My name is Dino. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to like this video. Please feel free to ask, leave any comments or ask questions. What do you think about this rollout through the Today Show? What do you think mass media's role and new media? What do you think about, talk about the language for the at versus the about sign? Finally, please feel free to subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.